Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. Today we've got on Mr. Matt Reilly to come and join us today. Excited to chop it up with you, Matt. Always a pleasure. We're going to get some people to come in here and we're going to break down the story of Mr. Matt Reilly, talk about what's going on in your business, and get caught up, man, with how everything's been.
It's crazy because we've done this so many times, like the morning live streams and stuff. But the first time that we did this type of live stream together was when I first joined. Like when I gave the full back, like this type. Usually we're just chopping it up, talking deals, talking all that kind of stuff. But like actual background, all of that was probably a year and a half ago now, 2 years, almost two. I'd have to look at my profile.
It's definitely been a while now. I remember I was so excited. We were less than 5,000 members, and I kept saying, I said, everything's going to change at 5K. Everything's going to change at 5K. And lo and behold, who joins? Who's member number
I was gonna say
5,000?
I was five on the money, I think.
Yeah, you were. That's crazy. Matt was member number 5,000. Crazy.
And now it's four x that amount in just that 2 years.
We got to get it to 100K. That's the next goal. That's for sure. So, for
John.
everybody that's joining us, we're going to get a couple people to pop in here. I'd love to break it down, man. I appreciate you taking some time to hop on the live with such short notice as well. Who is Mr. Matt Reilly?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question. Um, yeah, I mean, again, I didn't know we were going to do it like this, but the background, I think a lot of people might know already, but I think I've shared photos and all that. So I started in the union. I've been working since 16, basically selling snow cones across the country, working different factory jobs, warehouses, all of that. And then my most recent W-2 was working at the union. I worked there for about 11 years, family business. Came in when I was like 2021. And then that was the first job I really, it allowed me to be able to participate in real estate because I was making enough money, making good money, decent money sometimes. But it was the one job that I hated the most. So it created that switch of like, I don't want to work here. I can't work here forever. Like there's got to be something else. And I'm not the most educated person. I didn't graduate college, nothing. So it's like at that point in my life, in terms of like, all right, what else can I do? My only background was, driving forklifts, working in warehouses, working the midnight shifts, 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. So it's like, if I don't work here, I'm going to work somewhere similar to this. So there's got to be something else besides this. And so that that was the plan from there. There was no other way besides that. But that was the fuel to me being able to participate in purchase using checks from the W-2. I just saw my boy Tim Sivowitz is from back home from Chicago where I live, and he invests in properties too. He's got a couple of Section 8 properties, and we both. He works a W-2 as well, and so we had different mindsets at that point years ago. Where I hated my job so much, where I was like, I have to leave. Where he has, a shitty job at times. Like I don't want to speak for him, but he's a lineman. So like when your power goes out and all that, those guys go across country and they're working, forever, and it can be very, very shitty working in the elements. But at that time, at least, he was like, I don't necessarily want to leave. I just don't necessarily want to do all the overtime, and I don't, I want to be able to spend time with my kids and my family. So I want something that can supplement, so I don't have to go do the overtime. I can keep the job, the benefits, all of that. That's fantastic for me, and I just don't have to work the overtime and do all of that. And so my mindset was a little bit different where I was like, I don't give a shit. I got pushed to the point where I was like, I don't care about the benefits or the insurance or the overtime or anything. Like I'd rather make no money than to work here any longer. And so that was the catalyst to me starting to buy real estate at that point.
And so, how did
Certified
you
forklift. I was certified at one point.
how did you find out about real estate, and what made you feel like this was what you were going to apply yourself to?
That's always, I don't know. I always make up the story in terms of like how I got interested in because I really don't know. But I always say like when I was growing up, my mom's boyfriend at the time owned a couple of 12-unit buildings. And I remember as a kid, like 10, 11 years old, 12 years old, driving around while he was collecting rent. And this is back in my date, but like the mid 90s. I remember thinking it was really cool because him and his brother both were in real estate and they both had Corvettes. So the brother had like this cool blue Corvette and he had like this mint green one. And we would drive around in his Corvette while he collected rent. And again, back then, he was just collecting envelopes full of cash. So we would go inside the buildings and he was collecting rent and we'd come back in the car and he's like, here, hold this. And it would just be an envelope full of just cash rent. And at like 11, 12 years old, I was like, what are you doing? Why are these people just giving you money? You have an envelope full of cash. They're just handing this over to you. It didn't make any sense. And then I started going to like real estate kind of like seminars when I was 18, 17 years old, where I didn't even have a car at that time. And my mom would drive me like an hour and she would wait in the parking lot. And it was just something I had kind of seen briefly on the internet and I wasn't really sure. And when I first started going there was these two young guys who are younger than I am, maybe around your age at that time. And they were hosting it and super successful. They were killing it. And they were hosting this like every week. And so every week I would go in there and I would just sit there and listen. Never took action at any point. I wasn't doing like, again, what you guys do in this community at your age and younger, absolutely incredible. And I feel like it's also a testament to like where we are with technology and prop stream and batch leads and all these things that weren't there when I was around. But the forward progress of where you guys are at your stage of life, age wise, compared to like where I was and where anybody I knew at my age was, is leaps and bounds farther. Like I said, at your age or younger, I was sitting in a room with other people while two other people talked and they were telling me about whatever. And then I would drive home with my mom and be like, that was awesome. And I would go home and maybe look some stuff up on the internet, but I wasn't calling homeowners. I wasn't, Tim knows him, Phil Marcotte. He owns a 12-unit back home. And then he also owned a building where he lived in one of the units. And so he was kind of my first taste of like someone my age that I knew that was like actually doing it. Him and his cousins invested in this 12-unit building. And back in the day of the 1900s, yeah, not to date myself, I was driving my 92 Pontiac Sunbird. But he was like someone my age that like I knew that was actually doing it. So him and his cousins got together, formed an LLC. They bought this 12-unit building right before the market crash. It was a 12-unit building that they converted to condos. So they separated the pins, sold off like 6 of the condos to make a bunch of money back, and they were killing it. And so his uncle just so happened to deal with Section 8 at some point. He owned a couple of Section 8 properties, and I never even knew about it at that point. And so he was telling me about it, and he was telling me the horror stories about how his tenants were so bad that their Section 8 portion was only like $50. And he would tell them, keep your 50, just keep my properties clean. And of course, the story always ended up being, and they couldn't even do that. And just the horror stories about Section 8. But it raised enough of like that light bulb where I was like, okay, well, what is that though? Like, how do you even get involved with it? And then after looking at it, again, I got lucky. Just so happens in my backyard at that time of those zip codes that surrounded me was the highest payment standards in Illinois and some of the highest Section 8 payment standards in the country. I mean, it was crazy what you could buy properties for in that area. I was buying properties for $50,000, $60,000 that were renting for $1,800, $2,400, $2,300. Those same houses that I bought literally 2 years prior when the market, the crash, and it was 2010, 2011, 2009, even like right when it first happened. I was driving those blocks in my car and there were signs, for sale signs, just in Sharpie marker in front of all these houses that said for sale, $11,000, for sale, $17,000. 3, 4, like nice ranch style 3 and 4 bedroom homes that I own now on the same blocks that now are worth probably $200,000 and above. That when I was even buying them, they were 50 to 60,000 for sale. 11 and 17,000 to call the real estate company. I think someone's playing a prank on you guys. Like someone put a sign up that said for sale $11,000. You guys might want to come take this down. And they're like, oh, and they look in their database. Like, nope, that's $11,000. And I was like, what? And then matching that up, looking, and I was like, this house, if I were to buy it for $11,000, I could rent it out to Section 8 for $15, $18, $2,000 a month. And so it kind of just, again, it was just perfect timing. And again, I was just blessed that, like, just so happens that I had the highest payment standards there to really make sense of it all.
So, wow. Let's fast forward. You've built up an incredible portfolio. You leveraged and learned how to master creative finance. So now you've got how many dozens of units, right? That most of them, what did you say? Most of them you acquired creative finance, or?
Yeah, I would say most was creative seller finance. I had a couple. One of my good friends, RIP, loaned me money on one of them a couple years ago, where he was basically my private money lender, and I bought that property, and then acquired a bunch through successful cash out refinances. So I had a bunch of properties under separately, and then I did a big blanket cash out refinance into one portfolio loan. And so the equity that I pulled out, I actually just used that to purchase other properties at the same time, and then I took all of that together into one portfolio. So a couple of successful cash out refinances, creative, traditional even too. Like at that time, it's crazy. I would say most of my financing that took place was probably in the fives. Like I never bought an investment property where I had a crazy 2% or 3% during COVID or anything. Like my average interest rate across the border, actually I have one right now that's like three and a quarter, but that's my lowest one. My average across the board is probably 5%. So just traditional as well, DSCR, creative, all of it. I mean, anything you can do at that time to make it make sense. That's what I was doing.
Dope. And so you've no longer been really focused on being a landlord now, right? Are you still a landlord, or are you trying to get out of that business and now you're more interested in the cash business? What has happened? Where have you gone from there?
I feel like, it's been a roller coaster. So I sold a good portion of my portfolio to a previous member of this community. And that was a crazy experience in itself. He lives in Argentina. So not only selling a portfolio creatively, but also where your end buyer lives in another country. I learned so much during that transaction. And so that was $3 million worth of that portfolio. So a lot at stake, a lot of hurdles, a lot of notary issues that were not accepted by title companies. There was wire issues. I mean, you name it. It was bad. So that was a lot. And so selling that, I was done with being a landlord, especially Section 8. I got burned out. And then I kind of got into wholesaling right after that. And so some people might think I've been wholesaling for a long time. I've only been wholesaling since joining this community, basically. So less than 2 years for sure. And it's been very successful, very happy and appreciative with all the things that we've been able to do. But now I'm getting back into the idea of, I don't want to say being a landlord because I'd hate that, but buying properties again for sure.
Being an investor,
not
so much
on the commercial. Yeah. I'm looking at the commercial stuff. I don't really want to deal with the allure of like the $50,000 and $60,000 Section 8 prop. Like I know what that leads to for me. Right. I think it's good experience for people to get, especially like now I have that experience and it helps me for other things. And now I know it's like when you put all your cards on the table, right? You can always go to sleep at night knowing like, well, I tried everything. I tried it. I'm good. Right now I'm good. Maybe if I build a different portfolio, I can sprinkle some in there. But for me, no, thank you. I'm good. I'll let someone else have that experience.
So when did the idea come in your head where you were like, all right,
Dark.
I'm done with this Section 8 stuff. I'm gonna try to get into commercial real estate.
The dark side of commercial. So I have commercial properties too, and so I the idea of it made sense at that time, but I think more after, especially like while wholesaling and especially just like networking with continue. I feel like when I was building my portfolio and doing my real estate stuff, especially like in the union, I was always like a lone wolf. I did everything by myself. I never partnered with a single person. The only person I ever partnered with was that private money guy, my buddy that loaned me money to buy a house. But we weren't partners. It was just private money and that's it. Outside of that, I never partnered with anybody. I never went to any networking events, nothing. And so I was just putting my head down and doing my own thing. And so I think wholesaling and joining the community was really what launched like actually getting in front of people, talking to other people doing this, all of the people that we've had on here, the Ben Williams of the world, and all these other people that are doing things in real estate that make that light bulb go off. I know your light bulb went off with creative finance literally on one of
Yeah,
our calls. I think
absolutely.
it's recorded somewhere in the YouTube archives. Um, so I think the commercial thing kind of happened like that. Just after joining the community, after selling the portfolio, after wholesaling now for 2 years and being completely hands off on the portfolio side and only focusing on wholesaling, it allowed me to step back and be like, okay, if I were to reintroduce myself to this, what makes the most sense at this stage of my life? I feel like if I started buying $50,000 and $60,000 properties again, I'm starting over, and I don't want to do that. I want that 10 years of experience to mean something, and I feel like the next logical step is commercial, especially you know and understand the commercial aspect. We talked about it with the motel and there's been a bunch of conversations, but the forced appreciation aspect, the forced equity aspect of commercial, where that's why some of the largest investors that you know, whether they're on social media or in real life at networking events and everything, they are involved in commercial because of that ability to force that appreciation, force that equity, to be able to get in and get out of a property equity wise by raising rents, by doing improvements, lowering your expenses, not having to wait around for the natural appreciation cycle like you do on residential. I buy a single family. I always told the example, my houses that I was buying for 60, 70,000, $100,000, I could rent one of those houses out for $20,000 a month. The lender, the appraiser doesn't care. The appraiser goes, "That's fantastic, but what do other houses around you sell for? Not including the income. We don't care." And if other properties have only sold for $100,000, regardless that mine's renting for 20,000, my house is only worth 100,000. But I can go buy a commercial piece of property that's bringing in $10,000 a month, and it's under market rent, and all I got to do is come in and raise rents $50 or $100 a month, and now that adds however many hundreds of $1,000s worth of value, depending on the cap rate. And now I just took a $500,000 commercial property, and now it's worth $750,000 just because I raised the income and lowered the expenses. Sometimes you don't even have to raise the income; you just got to figure out how to lower your expenses, and now your building makes more money. And now I just made $250,000 without having to swing a hammer, without having to wait for the market, without having to wait for appreciation. So I feel like commercial is the next logical step. And I think when you're first starting out, you're scared of it because the numbers are usually bigger. You're looking at $1 million, $5 million, $3 million, and those are scary numbers. And so 50,000 is much safer. 30,000 is much safer, which is when you look at the average wholesale deal in here, most people are slinging $50,000 properties, $30,000 properties. So I get it but the numbers are the same. You just got to add that extra zero on it. Like you just have to know how to underwrite it. And then once you know how to get money too, like find the money on the motel thing, like we were talking about. Finding the deal is the hardest part. Like people get scared when they're looking at these commercial properties, but once you know how to analyze and underwrite, there are so many people that are sitting on piles of money, don't want it sitting in the bank, but they have or the want or the need to go look for these deals. So if you can give them a deal, they can go park money on. And commercial is probably one of the best places to park it too, because again, that person putting their money in doesn't have to wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years for the market to hopefully appreciate and play the speculation game. We can do that right in our underwriting and say, no, if we raise rents X amount of dollars, or if we lower our expenses X amount of dollars, this property value day one will now be worth this on day two. And so it's much easier for you to park your money because you understand what it's going to be in that period of time. So that's, for me, my next logical step.
So that's the next step. And what are you doing right now? Because I know that you said you got into wholesaling, you're doing ovations. What are you mostly focused on right now?
I'm most focused on, I feel like right now, wholesaling is a good operation for us. So me and Carter are working together. I have VAs on the cold call side. And so we're putting the pieces together on our systems and building that out to where, again, it's a great piece of income for whatever you want it to be. So you can use wholesale as your main source of income if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but that could be your main source of income for your bills, your mortgage, your rent, your car, all that kind of stuff. Live your life that way. Or like what I was doing with my W-2, even when I was an agent in Chicago for 5-6 years, the commission checks that I would use, I'd get a commission for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Well, now, it just so happens that this $100,000 property that my lender's asking for 20% down, 20 grand. Well, I just made 20,000 on this commission. I just roll it over into a piece of real estate now. So getting the wholesale operation to a point which we're doing very well in, where that can fund actual real estate investment purposes. And now, before, when I was wholesaling, doing the creative and even this, I wasn't even looking at these. As soon as they would come in, we're analyzing, we're underwriting just for dispo. I never even looked at a property once over the last year where I was like, oh man, this would be something I would really want to take down. Like, I was that burned out and no interest in owning any more property at that point, where not a single one did I look at. Now I'm at a point where we are analyzing it ourselves first. Carter, props to Carter, been working with me for a few months. He's now asking me a lot of questions on financing and creative, because he wants to take down his first property as well. He's eyeing out a duplex in Cleveland and another property as well that he's been underwriting and figuring out numbers on. So I feel like that's the best, depending on where you are in your life. Like if you're living at home or you have low expenses or you have the ability to take that risk, like do this as a segue to where I feel like the best place for you to be is purchasing. Like, put this money to actual use, put it to actual work, make that $10,000 check be $100,000 in the next 5 years by just parking it in real estate, and let it appreciate, grow that equity from principal pay down and, value add, whatever you're doing, but actually put it to use. Do whatever you want to do. But again, I just feel like wholesaling, you can get burned out. And so make it worthwhile. Have something to show for it at the end of it. You smile on it.
No, it's absolutely true. Wholesaling can definitely burn you out. That's an absolute fact.
Yes, and I don't have to.
You got to roll with the punches, man. Because that's also why I want to bring you on today, Matt, is to talk about the business. The reason why I love to talk to Matt is a real guy. Matt, he'll tell you the reality. You know what I'm saying? In a way that he's not a jerk or anything, but the reality is, this business is not easy. It's simple, but it is very difficult. You will go through situations where it's just the most random shit can happen, and it's really out of everybody's control. Sometimes it feels like the best thing you can do is just pray. There are so many things you really just have absolutely no control over, and navigating through those.
Told you today.
Yeah. Well, what happened today, man? What happened today in this business?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that. And like I told you today, no matter if you're wholesaling or you're, let's just say, the end buyer and you're actually purchasing it, a real estate transaction requires two parties, at least two parties, a buyer and a seller. So no matter what, you can never be 100% in control of a scenario or situation. So anything can happen. And that's what is frustrating and it's so rewarding at the end, because it's like anything else. You go through that struggle, you go through all of that, and then you're finally at the finish line. You're finally at closing. You finally, get your assignment fee, or you actually purchase the property yourself. But goddamn, sometimes it is wild. So, yeah, we got a couple of deals right now that are. We have four deals that should be and are closing in December. Four, maybe five, whatever it is. But one of them is in Cleveland. We got a single family that we've been under contract on. I see Carter typing. He's gonna give all the. And so we got a single family in Cleveland. For all intents and purposes, regular property, owner occupied, clean, good to go. Got good healthy margins on it. Put it on the market. Got decent. We ended up getting like 5 or so offers, 3 to 5 offers over like a week and a half. Chose the best one. A week into it, they did their walkthrough. After the walkthrough, they're like, we're waiving our inspection contingency. We're good. Cool. Then like 2 days later, they told us, hey, the lender said no appraisal needed, so we're waiving that. Wow, fantastic. So now we just need title commitment. We'll close. Well, 2 weeks goes by. All of a sudden, buyer side goes dark. Buyer's agent's not responding. My agent can't reach them. The lender's not responding. Nothing. And so I started getting real worried, and I started getting involved. My big issue with novations is I'm very hands-on. So allowing like a listing agent to be like, hey, I got it, I'll call everybody, I just don't trust it. I have to be the one to call and follow up. So I started calling the lender and calling everybody I could. Lender calls me this morning, and as a professional courtesy, he said, because I'm on the seller side, and told me that the buyer is a buyer group that he's been working with for like 15 years. And the person funding the deal passed away unexpectedly over the holidays. And obviously that's terrible. And you never want to hear that. And it's unfortunate and everything else. And it really shed a light on like, okay, here I am freaking out, and, something actually happened. But it's one of those things that like, you have no idea that could ever happen, or like, what do you even do? So they're dealing with the estate attorney for him. And he told me, we are 100% funding this and closing this. We're just trying to figure out where the money is going to come from. He's a high net worth individual, so he has multiple LLCs and accounts, and he's got a wife, and so we're just trying to figure it all out. And so absolute disaster there. We have a probate where literally right before this phone call, I didn't even know if I'd be able to make it. Our elderly seller, the way that we have to close it is the family members need to quit claim deed all of their interest over to our person on the contract. And our title company and attorney need that document signed and notarized. Well, there's 8 people that need to sign and notarize it. So we just had 8 elderly people in a bank 30 minutes before the bank closes. We sent them over the documents, and then all of a sudden one of the sellers calls us and says, hey, the notary person doesn't want to do this because the names on there are incorrect. These have our maiden names on there, and it's not matching up to our IDs. And then you can hear like the lady in the background being like, we're closing in 20 minutes. We're closing in 20 minutes. And so me and Carter are in .loop. He's in Microsoft Word. We're changing everything out, sending it over. Hey, the one you sent, and they're a bunch of old ladies. So like sending them the email, like they're not getting it correctly. It's like, it's terrible. And then we sent them over the first one. There was something wrong with it, so we had to correct it. And then that one got signed, and then we missed the second document. And then one of the ladies left and had to come back. Like, it was absolutely insane. And then we have one in Southern Illinois going through a bunch of inspection issues. So long story short, like, you don't know. We've had so many where I'm like, this is a no-brainer, dude. Get this under contract. This will sell so fast. It'll be a killer. Like, get this under contract. And then you get it under contract. Like, all 3 of these are no-brainers to me. Like, what we got it for, what we listed it for. I got professional photos. I got them cleaned out, like did all the right things. And then you hit the market and you're like, what is happening? And then we got that one in South Carolina, which right before we listed, I talked to Carter and I was like, are we sure about this price, dude? We might be too high. Like, did we lock this up too high? and we listed it for 130, whatever, and ended up selling for 165. We got over 10 cash offers within 24 hours, went 20% over asking, and closed within 2 weeks. So it's like, you just don't know sometimes. And you just have to, I don't know, you just have to be able to roll with it. And that's what I've told you. And just speaking in general, this is a long person's game. Like, you can't, if you want to get in and get out, that's fine. Like, a flipper might flip one house, make 30, 40, 50 grand, and then you don't see them again for another year or two. Like, they just get in and get out every once in a while. So if you want to be that person, 100%, you can do that. But if you want to be in this for the long run, whether that's as a wholesaler or using wholesaling to do whatever that next thing is, buying real estate, whatever it is, you have to be able to handle those moments. You have to not over leverage yourself. You have to be very cognizant about your own situation. How much money do I have? How much money am I bringing in? How much can I afford to spend on this thing? And I can't, yes, you can take risks, but they have to be calculated, because again, 80% of real estate agents become real estate agents and then they're out after 12 months, because they tell you, you need, as a real estate agent, you better have 6 months of reserves when you become an agent, because you might not make a sale for 6 months. And I would say most agents never make that first sale, or it takes them longer than 6 months. So they get to that point and they're like, I don't have any money left. How am I supposed to float my entire life for more than 6 months without any money coming in? I got to go do something else. And then they end up leaving. So I think, like, all of these deals were supposed to close weeks ago. Some deals are falling apart. There's deals that we have locked up that aren't, we're getting offers well below what we have it locked up for. Thankfully, we're in a position where I'm telling them, sell it, just at least so the seller gets paid. Like, I don't need the money. Let the agent and the seller eat off that. Like, we're making no money on those deals. But thankfully, it's because we're positioned in a way where we can go months without getting a check if need be, which isn't going to be the case. But that's why it's so important, like I said, to position yourself in a way that you can last. There's no fun in just coming in and getting burned out and losing all your money and getting frustrated and leaving. So be able to position yourself, and don't be too proud to lower your marketing budget or whatever you need to do to outlast all the people that are in this game, that come in to this community everywhere else. Hundreds of people enter this community on a daily basis, first joining. I guarantee if 100 people entered today, 90 of them, you won't see them in 12 months. You're going to see a couple messages. They're hot and heavy in the beginning. They're excited. Let's go. Love this. Love this. And then the messages slowly start fading out. And it's just like, you got to be able to last. And I think I don't know how many people in here have been doing real estate for 10 years or more. So it's like, you got to be able to withstand that.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I know we've talked about it. That's what I'm seeing as well. It's just like this business is so random, dude. This business, there's so many things that are just so random, and it's like, fuck. Like you said, everything lines up. You're like, okay, this should be like 15K. This should be 20K. You get it even assigned, like everything going down to everything. It's already like earnest gets deposited. Everything's going great. Next thing you know, sorry, there's a title issue. We can't close this. You know, there's probate going on. This property never went through probate. Next thing you know, your seller dies. Like, these things really do happen, and you know, I think it is a disservice for a lot of people to think that this is just going to be some perfect solution, you know, to all of your problems, is starting a wholesale business, because it's difficult. I'm telling you, it is difficult.
Bro.
But I'm telling you as well, I won't give up, bro. I won't give up. I might get stressed. I might have to take a step back. I might have to relax. I might need time away from it, but it's not something that I can see myself giving up, because it's really all I know. This is really all I know, and until I can get to a position where, you know, I have other options, I think wholesale is what I gotta do. Like, I just got to do.
Yeah, but I agree with that, right? But then that's also dangerous, because I'm still a big proponent. Like I left the union because I hated it, and real estate was that outlet for me to be able to leave. And thankfully, at that time, and still, I do enjoy real estate and what it's been able to provide me and everything else. But the other reason of me leaving too is like I put my own like mental health and happiness over anything else. Like I literally told handfuls of people, like I literally don't care if I make $0 because there was people that I worked with that have been working there for 10, 15, 20 years and they will work there their entire lives. My dad is retiring December 11th from the union, the same place I worked. He was 45 years, 43 or 45 years in the same building, the same place, the same everything. And I think he's definitely had downs there of like not enjoying it, but I think for the most part he enjoys it. So when I was like I'm done, I'm leaving. I had people coming up to me all the time at the union was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we make good money here. Like, this is how we make our livelihood. Like, they could not imagine ever leaving there. It was like that scene. I think I've said it before. That scene in Batman where they're in that cave and they get to climb out and there's people just falling and dying all the time. And so like you see the one guy climbing out and everyone's like cheering and then he falls and dies. And like all the people cheering are either too old or they can't even imagine themselves trying to get out of there and they've lost all hope. So it's like these guys were like, what are you going to do if you make no money? And I was like, I swear to God, I don't care. I would rather make $0 doing this and what I want to do and putting myself first and trying to do this thing than ever continue to collect a check here, which is sacrificing everything else in my life and everything else. So I feel like what you're saying is true. Like, this is all I know, so it has to work. And that is a great mentality to have. And it's kind of the only mentality that you can have. But at the same time, you got to make sure that, like, is this something you actually enjoy? Because if not,
See, but here's the thing, man. It's like I enjoy it. But nobody enjoys losing for a prolonged period of time, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're playing chess, you're out on the soccer pitch, you're racing, whatever it is, whatever you do, it's not fun to lose over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It sucks. It
yeah,
fucking sucks. But when you win, it makes it worth it. You know, when you win and you get on that streak of winning, it makes it all worth it because it's like you had to go through that to build the character, build the skill set, build the preparation, I guess, to align yourself to win. But at the same time, it really does make me think, like, especially with the people that, you know, get on social media and like post about them just winning all the time. And I even have friends, bro, that just win all the time. It makes me wonder, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Because it has to be some sort of like something, right? There has to be some sort of formula that there must be some variable that is just different that can probably be fixed, but it's just like I look at my deals, these last couple of deals, and it's just been the most random shit.
I
I
can
just
tell
don't
you though,
know.
and I've told you over 2 years. Like, I've heard you on the phone. I've heard you talk to sellers. I've either been on the phone with you where we've done conference call. I've listened to your live stream. I've listened to everything. I don't think it's you per se. I don't think it's how you're disclosing things. I don't think it's you not giving enough information to the sellers and they're backing out later because you put them under false pretenses or anything else along those lines. I don't think it's any of those things. I think sometimes shit just happens, unfortunately. Like, again, I could say the same thing for these 3 or 4 deals that we have right here, where I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Is it me? Did we do something wrong on our side? But if I take a step back and I put the frustration over here, I look at the deals and I'm like, we locked them up. These are not deals where like we're getting offers way below our price with the seller and all of these, inspection, whatever it might be. I'm looking at it. I go, the price that we locked these up are good. The one that we're dealing with in Southern Illinois, they got an appraisal done. It came in at least at appraised value. I think it probably came in higher. So our pricing is good. It's as is. Like, all of the things I'm looking at, I'm like, it's not us. It's not us. It just so happens sometimes. And I always say too, like I told Carter, like closing in December I've done this to myself for so many years in a row. My wife and I, years ago, I was closing a commercial deal in Illinois as an agent. I had two buyers every year. At the end of every year, they were doing cost segregation. So they had a large tax bill that they owed the IRS. Instead of writing that check to the IRS, they would go purchase real estate instead. So they had to spend like $2 to $3 million every year. So driving around in like November, December, looking for commercial properties and all. And as you know, and anybody doing commercial takes 30 to 45 days, 60 days sometimes. So we're already too late. And we get this big office building under contract, doing the inspections. We were driving to Wisconsin to go visit her family for New Year's. So we are that close to the end of the year. I'm driving up there. It's so far north Wisconsin that like 2 hours into our drive, I start losing reception every time. Every time we get to our uncle's house, I'm talking, my phone is a brick, not one bar, no bars. It's bricked. So I'm in the car, dude, and their buyers are calling me with items, like the sellers, like I'm doing live negotiations while driving the day before New Year's, and just so stressed out by this deal that never ended up closing. It was like a $4 million office building that the problems ended up being too big for us to get over the hurdle. And we couldn't extend it to 2025 because they needed to purchase something by that year for cost segregation purposes. So the deal fell apart. And I remember being like, I'll never do a deal in December again. I hate the stress and pressure of December deals, because anybody that's never done one, you only get 2 weeks, maybe in December. Thanksgiving is November, at the end of November. So already the day before, people are gone. The day after is Black Friday. So title companies, attorneys, everybody's gone. Then they come back for only a few days. Now you're getting into December. You start getting those auto out of office emails like December 15, 16. Some people don't come back until after New Year's. So it's so stressful. So I would say, knowing you and how you are on the phone and how you talk to sellers and everything else, I don't think it's you. I always think it can be us. Like, don't get me wrong. There's probably a percentage of it that's me. But overall, when you're doing enough deal flow, which I know that you are, again, it's a numbers game, right? If you're only doing one deal a month or one lead per month, the chances of you running into an issue is very, very small. You're not doing enough volume at that point. But if you're doing consistent volume, like you and me and Carter and anybody else that's doing consistent like that, where you're touching and closing anywhere from 5 to 7 a month, 5 to 10, you have under contract at all times, you're going to run into shit all the time. And it's very easy to be like, does this always happen like this? Well, when you're touching 100 files per year, like, yeah, man, like if 10% of that could be fucked up, and that's 10 files, that's 10 headaches throughout the year. That could be large headaches. And that's just because you're doing a good amount of volume. So that's just, and again, when you say I have to, because this is the only thing I know how to do, I think that's half true. But at the same time, as long as you're learning and growing from this as well, so every time that you say that, so you're going to say that again 30 days from now, this is all I know how to do. Well, as long as you know how to do more 30 days from now, and then 30 days after that, you're going to say, well, this is all I know how to do. Well, do you know how to do more than you did 30 days ago and the 30 days prior? You got to as long as you keep learning and experiencing.
But learning and experiencing, that's going to be, though? That's the question. Is it like, do you look at another business?
From every deal.
But it's got to be another solution or whatever, because like so many opportunities, and we talk about it too, is like you got to be focused on just one thing constantly. People tell me about these opportunities and doing this and doing that. I just tell them no. I just straight up tell them I know what I'm doing, and I'm just focused on what it is I'm doing. And it's like, I think it's just, I hate to say that it's unlucky, you know? I hate to say that it's unlucky. I mean,
there could be an element of that, but I also think, again, you say like going through all of that, and that makes the win so much more worth it, right? Because like, oh, we went through all of that and now I got this check. But it's like, do I actually enjoy what, like, I'm not saying you have to enjoy the hard parts, because again, right before this call, I was not enjoying myself, and I'm going to get off this call now and go back to reality and not be enjoying myself. I already know that. But there's elements to what I do that I do enjoy on the real estate side. So it's like when you get that win, did you actually enjoy any of that process? Because I think a lot of people where I'm going with this is like I think in this community similar, and just real estate as a whole, people get into this because of the low barrier of entry. Even as a real estate agent, that's a very low barrier of entry depending on what state. You have to take 60 hours or 70 hours, and that's it. You could do that in a weekend pretty much. So it's low barrier. As a wholesaler, there's so many people out there that, oh, you can wholesale for $0. So you get in with this false pretense of like, I don't know anything about real estate, but I heard I can do it for no money and make big checks. And then they start doing it, and it's like, are you doing it for the right reason? You're
But
just starting out, so
I enjoy
you're not gonna hate
underwriting.
it. But
I
like,
enjoy underwriting houses. I enjoy like looking and seeing because like that's something I know how to do. I enjoy that part. I don't really enjoy getting calls, from sellers that seem hopeless. That I don't know if this is gonna pay me, to be listening
two
to
of
this.
those, two
Those
of those.
I don't enjoy that all too much, and I don't enjoy when the deals fall through. That's not fun. But I do enjoy
No,
getting the deal closed, and I enjoy the idea of okay, if I just keep doing this, I'm gonna be able to build up something bigger, right? Even if there have been small things, I have still had some small wins, um, but I want to really I gotta figure out how.
I know what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where this is. I know, and again, I think you have like you of all people in this community. Again, there are people that I've worked with, excluding Carter, that I saw potential in, but if it was like a piece of clay, I'm like, I see the potential, but it's going to take a lot of carving, a lot of like, it's going to take a while for us to get there, but I see how we could. And again, excluding Carter. With you, like, again, I don't, there's a part of me that like doesn't understand because I hear you on the phones. I hear you're so well spoken. You're very well informed. You're not missing any corners, nothing like that. So I feel like it's just something else that's either outside of your power, or some other things. So again, it's just one of those things where I feel like you're also somebody that is could be interested in so many, like as a business owner, as a whole, and that might not even be real estate. That might be something else, and that's to speak to other people too that are just starting out. Like, are you doing wholesaling because you have no money and you heard that you could do this for no money and make big checks, and but you don't really enjoy doing this? Because again, I feel like if you're wholesaling, can you see yourself wholesaling and then eventually buying properties and being fully immersed into real estate? If not, I would just think about that and be like, do I want to focus a lot of my time doing this, or I don't want to get upset over something that I don't even see myself wanting to do in the future. Like, don't let this emotionally get to me and bring me down and have a bad day if I don't even see myself being here in 12 to 24 months because I don't like doing it. There are people doing wholesaling that are like, I hate this. I'm only doing it for the check. I hate real estate. I hate houses. I never want to own one. I don't want to own a building. I don't want to own an office building. I don't want to be a lender. I don't want to do anything. I just want to get the check and be done. And that's okay. But again, when you're having those down moments, it's like, do I actually enjoy doing this? Because again, that happened to me with my portfolio. I built this portfolio that started probably for the wrong reason. It started because I hated my situation with my job and not being able to see my wife or my family, and working 40 straight hours without going home or taking a break or going to sleep. And it was absolutely miserable. So it started from the wrong place. And then I built it at such a fast pace because I was like, I got to get out of here. So I probably skipped a bunch of stuff that I probably shouldn't have done, and just to get out. And then I got out and then had success, and I was like, this is fantastic. I love this. And then because it was built from the wrong place, once I got to that point, I was like, I'm fucking burned out, dude. I actually don't like this. I actually don't like really being a Section 8 landlord for these properties. I don't like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing that requires me to do this while owning a portfolio. And I didn't realize it until way later because I was blinded from it because I forced myself to do it, to get out of that spot. And I feel like a lot of people just starting out force themselves into wholesaling because of whatever position they're in right now, and they think that's the way out. And it might give you a shovel to dig out of your spot a little bit and give you some breathing room, but take those breathing room opportunities to be able to give yourself a step back and be like, okay, now I got some breathing room. Is this really what I want to be doing? Or I finally got some breathing room to go figure some other shit out. Like I got a buddy who was working a corporate job and got fired or quit, I think. I don't want to say he got fired, but he quit. And instead of jumping into another corporate job, he did, I think, the right thing and took 2 or 3 months off and called me and was like, I'm actually not going to jump into another job. I actually have this idea that I want to explore. And so he like tried building this app and like he finally had breathing room to take a step aside and be like, do I even like doing what I was doing? I actually have this idea. Let me go explore that and see if that works. And if not, I can always go get another job. So just make sure your intentions are correct when you're doing it so you don't get burned out if possible.
Yeah, I think. I mean, even the people that are doing that in winning, don't really enjoy like all of the aspects of the business,
No,
But
dude, no. The only people truly enjoying it are so far removed from it because they've insulated themselves by plugging in again like the pyramid. They are almost outside of the pyramid. They're all of their systems and processes are in place, so they're not even a part of leads coming in. They're not a part of underwriting. They're not a part of putting stuff under contract. They're not a part of title company communication. They're not a part of sellers or buyers dying 2 days before closing. They're not a part of 8 old ladies at the bank trying to get a document notarized and signed a day before closing. And, they're not a part of any of that stuff. So those are the only people that probably enjoy it because they're so far removed from those aspects. And so it just, again, depends on how you systemize yourself in that situation as well.
so now that you've done novations, you've got that dialed in. I mean, and I know that novations is still a hot topic for a lot of people.
Novation sucks, dude.
You don't
Novation
like it?
sucks. I don't like it only because, and I'll get to Aaron's. I saw Aaron Berry's question, so I'll answer that after. I was thinking about it today. I think I was going to make a post here or like on my Facebook story, and it was just going to say novations stink. I like, obviously, cash is always king, right? Because I was thinking about that. Like I got in and got out of creative because a lot of stuff, and I think it's just a very messy place right now where a lot of nonsense. And I think I'm not going to name any names, but there was just a person that got in trouble the other day for something completely unrelated to creative or subject to. But to say that things like that aren't going to happen on the creative side at some point in the future, I think is to claim ignorance. So I think there's a lot of messiness going on with creative. But I got in and got out because creative is so complicated in terms of how many moving parts there are on one transaction. There's already a mortgage in place with a lender. There's a seller. There's probably a listing agent if you're going on market. You have all of these there's an attorney. There's all of these third parties that are already involved in the transaction and moving parts. And then we did cash, and I was like, you get a property in a contract. I find a cash buyer who's already got cash. They don't need an appraisal. They don't need any of these things. They don't have anybody attached to them. There's no moving parts. We send it to the title company. As long as title is clean and clear, they close. It's such a simple thing. And then you start doing novations, and it's great because you can close properties that you probably couldn't close cash, potentially, depending on how you structured it. But then now I have a listing agent. I have a buyer's agent. I have a buyer. I have a title company. I have an appraiser. I have an inspector. I have inspection reports coming back to me for contingencies and seller credits. And I got FHA guidelines because I have a buyer who's FHA. Like I have so many more moving parts now that it's exhausting. It's truly, it can be, talk about burnout. It's like you're doing the same deal or like the same profit margins as a potential cash deal. And you're working potentially so much harder for it. Like my Cleveland deal should have been very, very easy. They came in at the appropriate price. They waived contingencies on the appraisal. So that's kind of a one-off if he didn't pass away. But outside of that, all the other ones that have been on the market, they stink. And I've talked to all my listing agents and we were laughing because they were like, there's issues on this, and we would have usually pointed to you as the seller side on an ovation because, as we all know, there's people out there that don't disclose to the sellers that they're listing it on the market, and they didn't, so you'll run into issues once you get listed. Like, I want that removed or whatever. These are all, no issues on the seller side. It's all on the buyer side. It's all on the financing. It's all on the contingencies. It's all on that. So novations, I don't know, man. They stink. It's the name of the game. I
They're
mean, you have
random.
to.
They're really random. We gotta probably talk to Rich or something again because I don't know. I want to know the reality because it's so easy to say like everything's flowers and roses, but like I want to know what's really going on. Like, is it actually this difficult or am I doing something wrong? Because like I don't know. I really don't think it's me per se. I think it is just like it has to be just. See, but then it goes into like I don't. If I say I don't believe in coincidence, I can't say that it's unlucky, right? Then I gotta say, okay, well, like, what am I doing wrong? There has to be something. There's some variable.
Well, I think it's healthy to look at yourself and go, what am I doing wrong? Instead of pointing the finger and going, what is everyone else doing wrong? Because you can play that game all every day of the week where you run into 15 problems in one week and you're like, what's everyone else's problem here? And then you're like, well, there's 15 different people on all of these, and you're the only X factor that's consistent in all 15 of those. So maybe it's you. So it's healthy to look at yourself and go, okay, is there something that I'm doing on my underwriting, on my conversations? Is there something that I could be doing ahead of time to prevent these issues? And that's why, like, that kind of leads back to what I was saying before when you're like, this is all I know how to do. Yes, that's all you know how to do today. And then 30 days from now, after you've completed many more conversations and closings and all of these bullshit situations, do you know more 30 days from now than you do today? Because that's what you should, again, hopefully you grow and learn from all this. Like the probate thing. I now know a lot more about probate than I did prior to starting this file. So now I know when we get another probate, I know what steps need to be put in place before we get under contract or as soon as we get under contract. Whatever else, novations, I know what to expect when it comes to getting offers. And like me and Carter, we still try to lock up, like, even though we're listing it on the MLS, I always say novations because if you're not putting money into the property beforehand where it's enough money that you have to secure yourself with a promissory note and deed of trust and record it against the property, you're not really doing a novation. You have it in your listing, you have it in your purchase agreement and your other documents that allow you to market the property. And one of those channels is the MLS. So I always, it's a novation, but we still try to lock up our deals at the cash prices, where I've had the conversation with Carter and I'm still a firm believer of this, especially in this market where, where rates are shitty, some markets are down. The MLS is just one dispo channel. Like, I know it's the biggest and broadest and largest net and will probably bring you a buyer that's willing to pay more than you might find on Investor Lift and wherever else. But it's still just one dispo channel. So even if you're listed on the MLS, you still got to do the traditional dispo model. You still got to be getting yourself in front of cash buyers, sending out text messages, emails. Like, Carter's great at that, where if we get a deal in Chicago or Detroit or a couple of other Ohio markets, like, we have our buyers there. So even though we're on the market or listing on the market, he's still hitting those buyers up, text messages and emails, and putting that deal in front of them because unfortunately not everybody checks the MLS. But at the same time, the goal is to move this property. We got to sell it. So we can't just rely on the MLS to do the work for us, especially, I have one in Chicago right now. I'm not going to name any names. But the listing agent on that, we're terminating the agreement with the listing agent and we're going to be relisting it with someone else. I don't believe that they were putting in the best effort on it and that it was being presented properly and getting in front of the right people. And so, like, what are we doing if we're not selling these deals? And so get it locked up still for a price that makes sense potentially to a cash buyer. If you're locking things up that only makes sense if it's on the MLS, then you're obviously limiting your buyer pool. Your buyer pool is bigger because you're on the MLS, but you're still limiting it to all of these people are gone now because you locked it up at a higher price. That was the one thing I didn't like about novations when I first found out about them is like, here's all of our other offers. You said no to those. Well, here's how I can get you more money. And then you end up locking it up at a price that only makes sense one way. And now you pigeonholed yourself into, that's like the creative, like when creative finance first started taking place. And they're like, everyone's offering you this. Well, I can go over ask and give you more money than what you're asking. And it's like, yes, sometimes you can, but a lot of times you shouldn't. And so I just feel like novations can stink because there's so many more moving parts. But there are certain people that, sell novations and they're incentivized to make them seem really good. But on the backside, they're having the same, 100%. They're having the same. There isn't a single investor or wholesaler out there that doesn't exist unless you're like, unless you're committed. You have a title. You're only doing wholesales or investing in one physical location where you have a title company connect where before inking the deal, you're getting a title search and getting the title commitment back and reviewing it and approving it. And like, it's just not going to be the case. You're going to run into shit. Open lines of communication with your sellers, always going to be the highest likelihood of you getting a deal to the closing table. Because if shit happens and you got a good seller on your hands or they trust you and you've built rapport, getting them to that finish line with you, like this poor woman with the notaries, we've had to run her around the block getting all these documents signed and go to these locations. But because we've built such a great relationship with her, she is doing this for us. So staying in communication. A lot of people get deals under contract and then they just don't talk to their seller for 3 weeks. And it's like, what do you think they're going to do? They don't even remember that they signed a contract. You got to stay in front of these people, make them feel good, make them, feel those warm and fuzzies that you gave them on the initial conversation to get that deal under contract. Continue that. I don't know what you. So yeah, I think there's a lot to it. But Aaron said, at what point did you know it was time to walk away from your full-time job, and what kind of position were you in? When I first started there, I was always told, or anything I looked up for that type of question, it was always a dollar amount. Like, oh, once I start making X amount of dollars a month, I'll leave. If I could find it, I would show you guys. I had a notebook and I literally wrote out my current income and expenses and all of that. And then the dream, the ideal dream, not even dream, like real, unreal, a $10 million house. Like, I'd like to, my mortgage payments, ideally for a house I would love, would be this. And car payment this, and we want to go on 2 vacations a year. That's probably going to cost this. And I literally broke it down all the way as far as I could. And I was like, that's going to be X amount of dollars per month. And then instead of saying I'm going to make that much a month, I looked at my current properties that I owned and I was like, okay, my net income, let's just say on one property is $500. So then I went to this side of the page and I was like, what on here is $500? Okay. My car payment at that time was like $476. So it's like, okay, one property, I can now cross this off. I no longer have this obligation here because it's being paid for by real estate. So I just broke it down that way where, okay, my average net cash flow is whatever, $300, $400. How many houses would I need in order to offset all of these things? So if I leave, my life is being paid for. One of my biggest big boy purchases was my car. And I waited because these 2 houses that I bought, I ran the numbers, and each of them, I'm not even going to say the dollar amount that I make net cash flow, because then you'll be able to figure out what the car payment is. But the total cash flow from those 2 properties totaled the car payment that I have. So that allowed me to mentally go purchase that car because I knew that those 2 properties were offsetting and I wasn't actually paying for it in that sense. So that's how I knew. Was once I got to a certain position where most of my properties were offsetting my current expenses in my life, that I knew that I could leave and live for however many months and not have to, worry about that. But also you have to be very cognizant as well. My big mistake that I made was when I was working my W-2, I was using my W-2 income to fund all of the rehab. So like I'd get a maintenance call for one of my properties. It'd be $2,000. And instead of what I would just take my check for my W-2 and go pay that. And I got confident where I was like, oh, this is super easy. I just take the money from here and go here. And I thought I was doing much, much better on my portfolio side because I always had money to pay for the things that needed to be done. And then after leaving, I realized I was like, oh, it's not making as much money as I thought. Because now when those repairs come in, I'm looking at the actual net income and I was like, it's not matching up. So don't get comfortable inside your bubble with your W-2 when you're funding your properties. And that was my biggest mistake, I would say.
So where are you looking for these commercial properties, Matt? Where can people bring you a deal to look at? What are you looking for? What type of commercial real estate are you looking to buy? Let's get you what you're looking for, man.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I always get envious of people that we probably know together and others that they do no marketing, right? They get all of their leads sent, like anything they're closing on or looking at is from other people sending it to them. So I love that idea. We just got a 5-unit lead in Nashville, Tennessee, like 2 hours ago that we need to underwrite, that the VA talked to. So I would say I wish I could get something in Tennessee. I'll look at single families and commercial in Tennessee. That's probably the only market that I'll actually look in single families for. Outside of that, the Midwest belt. So I would say Tennessee, Indiana. I really don't want to do anything in Illinois anymore. Chicago is one of the most condensed locations across the country when it comes to multifamilies. So it's really hard to get away from it when you start getting into commercial. So I really don't want to, but I will look. Ohio, just that Midwest belt, I would say is definitely areas of interest. I reached out yesterday on a couple in Louisville, Kentucky, a couple like 6 and 8 units that I'm looking at numbers and underwriting on. So, yeah, that's where I would love to be. Landlord friendly, low property taxes is like my 6-unit back in Illinois that was purchased for like $375,000. My tax bill is $16,000 a year, which is outrageous. Where like the 8 units I'm looking at right now are same price, a little bit more, and the tax bill is like $4,000. Yeah, Lee, Nashville is one of the 5 units we're looking at right now. I'm also talking to another guy that's got 12 units in Northeast Nashville, which isn't ideal, but they're very motivated. What I'm going to try to do on my first deal for commercial getting back in is do like a hybrid strategy where I'll probably have to bring 25% to closing, but then post closing have the seller carry back that 25% to me. So I'm in the deal for no money if the numbers make sense. So.
Well, fantastic. Matt, I definitely appreciate you, brother. We gotta definitely chop it up. I'm gonna be looking any of the leads that I have that fit that criteria. I'm gonna definitely keep you in mind, and you'll be the first to know. I mean, the only one that I've got probably that motel, man. We gotta see what we can do there.
Is that still somewhat alive?
That's still somewhat alive. I sit at the number, and just going back and forth with the guy, and waiting for him to come around, but.
As we are on the phone, there's my dog. But I just got a lead as we were on the phone from my VA. We got a lead, 2 units, 2-unit lead in Illinois, zoned commercial. I don't know. Are you open to take such a lead, or would you like to pass on it? So I'm looking. Again, that's Illinois. I just said I don't want to, but I'll probably say yes and take a look at it. 19 unit in Indiana. Yeah, I got a couple units in Indiana. I love Indiana. Very, very landlord friendly, low property taxes. I had to do an eviction in Indiana like a year and a half ago. It took 2 weeks from start to finish. I mean, it was seamless, painless. They make it extremely easy to be a landlord in Indiana. I love it. Good rents, good property taxes. Yeah, it's good. So let me know. I'd love to, if anybody wants to send me anything you got, I'd love to take a look at it. Me and Carter will look at it. and vice versa. If anybody's looking here to be like, I would love to do. I've broke bread. I think I said it before. I think I've broke bread with more community members than anybody else on the wholesale side, JVing. I would love to do equal that with people in this community that actually want to start purchasing properties. Like, I would love to have a lead in my pipeline that fits your criteria as a buyer, and to help you in whatever way be the buyer on that deal and that transaction. I would love for us to turn this community into that, like taking the wholesalers into investors and actually buying properties. And I feel like that would be a huge change.
Absolutely. We got to make it happen. We got to make it happen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Matt, I greatly appreciate you. Where do you think you will see yourself in the next 5 years? What are your goals? Do you have 5-year plans, or is it more like you're worried about what's going on this next week, this next month? Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm not trying. My wife wanted to do that, where she's like, what are your, she's asked me a few times over the last couple of months, like, what are your goals? And I don't know why it gives me stress all of a sudden. Like, I used to want to do that and now I don't. I don't think I have anything investing wise. I would love for 2025 to be the year that I fully jump back in and get those commercial properties, probably even slowly. I don't care. Even if it's 6 units, 12 units, just to get back in the door, get started again. But I think the goal that I made was our personal goal for our house. So I have a mortgage, and then we have a home equity line of credit on our house. And I'm going to move some stuff around, and I'm going to get that. I'm making massive payments on that to get that paid off, because I think that's going to put us in a position for other things as well. Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'm really interested in for 2025 for us, and then also for investing too. Not just investing traditionally, but there's a couple of strategies that I want to put in place that happy to share with the community as just maybe a light bulb moment in showing you other ways. You don't always, it's not just black and white sometimes of going to get financing, bring 20%, they bring 80. Like, there's so many other ways to do it that are still traditional and not creative subject to. So we can talk about that. But yeah, there's a couple of things that I'm excited for.
Well, I'm excited for you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tap that subscribe button, tap the like button, drop a comment on the video, and make sure that you all are aware of this. You've got to be careful with these crypto scammers, all right? We're not going to be reaching out to you and telling you that...
Good disclaimer, yes.
Yeah. We're not going to be calling you about Tether, about no cryptos, nothing. Please do not send anybody any sort of crypto. We are not crypto guys. We are real estate professionals.
Yeah, dude, don't get me started on crypto. I did that years ago, and I've already burned that out of my brain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, man. You take care.
All right. Peace. Thank you, guys.